Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Today here in America, it is Monday, and today is the disappearance day of Srila Rupa Goswami. So what I thought we could do was talk about Rupa Goswami, because if we've been talking about love, and so Rupa Goswami is the Vasa Acharya. Rupa Goswami is the one that Lord Chaitanya explained everything to. So if you're in Australia, that means I think either today, for you it's Sunday, for us it's Monday, so either today is Rupa Goswami's appearance for you, or it's going to be tomorrow, Monday, I'm not sure. Just want to try to straighten this. Let me put a title in. And I call this Rupa Goswami. We've been talking about love of Krishna, and Rupa Goswami is the one who explained it all. Today's his disappearance day. So we're going to talk about that, if that's okay. And I'm also going to give class after this, after we end, about 45 minutes after we end, we're going to have class in Alachua on this topic. So I thought I could read some things, enlighten you about Rupa Goswami. And the first thing to understand is that the science of bhakti, and especially the science of love of Krishna, that was explained by Lord Chaitanya to Rupa Goswami, and then Rupa Goswami explained that primarily in his book, Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so Mahaprabhu revealed all this knowledge for the first time, or the first time in a long time, all the knowledge about the intimate aspects of rasa, relationship. He revealed it to Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami became known as Rasa Acharya. So all the things that we read about in terms of the stages of devotional service leading to bhava and to prema, that has been given by Rupa Goswami. And we are called Rupa Anugas because everything we teach follows in the line of what's come from Rupa. So Mahaprabhu came to give something that he's never given before. And he gave it to Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami gave it to us. Trying to tell Srimati that I'm giving class so she won't write me. Doesn't she know I'm giving class now? Maybe not. So I want to read some things, then we'll discuss, and this will help us understand a little more about the topic of love. The first thing we should understand who Rupa Goswami is. Rupa Goswami is the most intimate disciple, not Diksha disciple. He's the most intimate disciple of Lord Chaitanya, and he's also the most intimate servant of Srimati Radharani, because Rupa Goswami, in his eternal form, is Sri Rupa Manjari, the most intimate associate of Radha and Krishna. So, not only did Lord Chaitanya reveal everything that he wanted taught, he revealed it to Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami fully understood who Lord Chaitanya was and his mood, and Lord Chaitanya's mood in the mood of Radharani, because Rupa Goswami is the most intimate servant of Radharani, so he understood Lord Chaitanya's mood in ways that no one else did, or very few did. So I want to begin by reading a verse written, that's I think an invocation to one of the books, Vidagdha Madhava, that Rupa Goswami wrote. Rupa Goswami wrote two books, he wrote many books, but there's two books, Vidagdha Madhava and Alita Madhava, and they're about the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan and the pastimes of Krishna in Dwarka. And it was going to be one book, but he was traveling and he slept one night in a place called Satyabhamapur, the place of Satyabhama, and he had a dream that Satyabhama came to him, and Satyabhama said, you should not make this one book, you should make it two books, because you should separate the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan from the pastimes of Krishna in Dwarka. And we don't want to hear about Krishna leaving Vrindavan. Just keep those pastimes separate, in a separate place. We want to focus, if we want to read about the pastimes of Vrindavan discreetly. So here's a verse. Let me find the verse. Here's the verse. A famous verse, you may have heard it. Anarpita charim chirat karunaya vatirane kalo samarpitam unatam chvalarasam svabhakti sriyam hari purata sundaraduti kadamba sandipita sadaridaya kandare spuratu vasachinandana. May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachi Devi, be transcendently situated in the innermost core of your heart. So he's blessing, it's a blessing. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has descended in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered, the most elevated mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. So he's offering a blessing, and then he's explaining why Lord Chaitanya came. So Lord Chaitanya came to give Krishna consciousness in the mood of conjugal love, also to give in the other rasas, but specifically to teach conjugal love. And all the other rasas are working around conjugal love. And just like Jasoda, she invited Radharani to cook for Krishna because she heard that Radharani was benedicted by Durvasa, that anyone who would eat her cooking would live long and healthy. So she thought, well, let's get Krishna to eat the food cooked by Radharani. So that means Mother Yasoda is bringing Radha and Krishna together. So that means the pastime of bringing Radha and Krishna together is even becoming central or in some way connected to the Leelas of Vatsalya Rasa. And then, for example, Subal, who was the most intimate cowherd friend, and today is also the appearance day of Gauridas Pandit, and Gauridas Pandit is Subal. And he would bring messages to the gopis and other kinds of prasadam from Krishna. He would bring from Krishna to the gopis. So he's almost on the level of a gopi. He's engaging in pastimes which help foster conjugal love. So conjugal love is the center, and Krishna is always feeling separation from Radha and always trying to meet Radha. And so all the other rasas are in some way nourishing it or some way cognizant of it. So therefore it says here he's come to give conjugal love, because without understanding conjugal love then it's not complete, because conjugal love is the highest and the gopis are the highest, and we worship the gopis as the greatest devotees. And even if we at some point in our devotional service become aware that conjugal rasa is not the rasa we're in, still the gopis are examples for us of the highest love, of the most dedicated. And so we take the dust of their feet on our head and we worship them. And Rupa Goswami is a most intimate gopi in the form of Upamanjari. So he's the most qualified to teach us about love of Krishna because he knows everything about it. Still, Lord Chaitanya spoke to him. So I want to read some things about Rupa Goswami, some ideas that I've collected. And it's not necessarily systematic, but I don't think that matters that much. So, a little history on Rupa Goswami. Let's see if I can find it. Let's do it. Yeah, systematic would be better. Okay. Well, they were... Rupa and his brother was Sanatana Goswami and Ballabha, who later became known as Anupama. So both Rupa and Sanatan were Brahmins, pure, learned, Sanskrit, Persian, Arabic, and just, eternal associates of Krishna, so you can imagine their position. So the minister of the Muslim government in Goda, he was known as Nawab Hussain Shah. The minister to Nawab Hussain Shah, he had some mystic power. And he said there are two young Brahmin boys that are living in Goda. And if you hire them, get them to work for you, then you will be blessed. Your kingdom will be blessed. So then he approached them, said, I want you to work for me. And they were very, maybe not trained, but so qualified they could do the job. So they were hired as basically the prime minister and the finance minister to run his government. And then you might wonder, why would Rupa and Sanatan take this position? They're Brahmins, and why would they lower themselves, become the servant of Muslims and servant in the government? It doesn't make any sense, does it? Because why would a devotee do that, but to speak of exalted devotees? So what actually happened was the Nawab said, if you don't do this, I'll kill you. So they didn't have much choice. So they accepted service of the Nawab. And when they accepted service, they were Brahmins. They were in a Brahmin community. And it was very strict at that time, so the Brahmins rejected them. They said that you're serving Muslims, so you're rejected from our community. And so when they were rejected from their community, then the Muslims understood that, and they gave them Muslim names. They said, now you're so in a sense they kind of became, at least externally, like Muslims. Now this happened in India, throughout India. When the Muslims took over, they had this policy that if a Muslim sprinkled water on a Hindu, then because the Muslims were considered, anyway, I don't know how this came about, but the Muslims convinced the Hindus that if a Muslim sprinkles water on you, then you become a Muslim. And so the Hindus came to the Brahmins and said, what do we do? The Muslims sprinkled water on us. And the Brahmins should have said, don't worry about it, just chant Hare Krishna and everything will be fine. But these were caste Brahmins, and they said, well, you've been, according to their caste rituals and understanding, now they've been contaminated by a Muslim, and so they've lost their Brahminical caste. So they became outcast or rejected, and so many of those people became converted to Islam. And so you'll see in India, if you go back enough generations, the Indian Islams were all Hindus. And there was this conversion. I mean, there may be other ways they converted, but this is one way. So anyway, by force, they became ministers. And anyway, at some point they wanted to get out. So I want to see if I can find that section. Hold on a second. I want to get the. Whoops. Let me get the chat up in case you've seen it. Doesn't want to come up. Not cooperating. Oh, that's not good. Good, I can't get the chat. Okay, we've got it up. All right. Yesterday's chat is up there. Okay. So I'll go from memory what I remember. So you can read in Prabhupada's books how they had told, at what point they told the Nawab that they were sick. They can't come in, and then he needed them, and then he sent his people and found out that they were hearing Bhagavatam. Anyway, Rupa Goswami had left, but Sanatan was arrested. And Rupa Goswami had left to join Lord Chaitanya, and he had left Sanatan with a lot of money, and Sanatan had bribed his way out of jail. And so they met Mahaprabhu and gave their lives to Mahaprabhu. And then later on, because Mahaprabhu wanted to make Rupa Goswami the Rasa Acharya, the one who would explain about Rasa Tattva and explain all the divisions, not only the 5 rasas and the 7 secondary rasas, but all about the nature of bhava and prema. And we didn't go into it in detail, but there are many divisions of bhava and many divisions of prema, and he analyzed them according to the mood and the emotion and how it affects the heart of the devotee, and then all the various stages of prema and all the different ecstasies, and it's just amazing. Amazing analytical study, and that's there in the Nectar of Devotion. So Rupa Goswami heard from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag, and so Mahaprabhu spent 10 days instructing him. And so Mahaprabhu, the only thing he left was the Shishastakam. He didn't write any books, but Rupa and the other Goswamis wrote books. And the disciple, or the of Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, he commented on any of the works of Rupa Goswami. So what Rupa Goswami left us was later explained, further elaborated on by Jiva Goswami. So the Goswamis, Nana Shastra Vicharana, they studied the Shastras very deeply. And so they could explain the science of Krishna consciousness and explain it in a way that those who wanted to make it cheap and say that they have love of Krishna and actually do sinful things in the name of love of Krishna would be exposed, or could be exposed. At least these Shastras that they wrote explain exactly what love of Krishna is, because so many people, even like you'll see in Christianity, people will say, I love God, when they don't. They don't even know what love is. So Rupa Goswami explained it in detail. And Jiva was his editor also. So he was his editor's disciple, and then he wrote commentaries on what he wrote. Being his editor, he could do that. Okay. So I want to... now, another thing that's important, maybe the most important thing for us to understand, that what we're learning about the science of Krishna consciousness, how to practice it, sadhana bhakti, and also the sadhya, or the goal of sadhana bhakti, which is love, which is developed in 9 stages, from faith to practice to becoming free from anarthas, to steadiness, to taste, to attachment, to emotion and love. That was explained elaborately by Rupa Goswami. And everything we need to know about devotional service is explained to him and by him. And therefore, we're called Rupa Anugas. And Rupa Anuga means to follow, and Rupa means we're following Rupa Goswami. So there's a prayer to one of the pranam mantras to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. It says, Rupanuga Viruddha Pa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine. That Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, his teachings, do not deviate one word from Rupa Goswami. Rupanuga Viruddha Pa Siddhanta. The Siddhanta of the teachings of Rupa Goswami, Bhakti Siddhanta does not deviate one word. So that means that our preaching, whatever we're giving, that follows exactly the teachings of Rupa Goswami. So whatever we're teaching, it's it's established against his teachings. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his book Jaiva Dharma, he explained the science of love of God as Rupa Goswami explained in Nectar Devotion. He went and explained and elaborated on it using those 9 stages. And then all the teachings on Bhava and Prema, he also explained them in Jaiva Dharma. And in this way we understand our position as followers of Prabhupada. Prabhupada is also following Rupa Goswami. So if we follow Prabhupada, if we're Prabhupada Anuga, then that means we're an Anuga of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, we're an Anuga of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And because they are all Anugas or followers of Rupa Goswami, we're all followers of Rupa Goswami. Now, Prabhupada, very early in the movement, he had, of course, translated Bhagavad Gita. Then he decided, then he had translated Chaitanya Charitamrita, and first canto of Bhagavatam had already been translated before he came. And then in 1970, he translated Nectar of Devotion. So he felt it was a very important book, and he slowed down his translation of Bhagavatam, which was his main service, to translate Nectar of Devotion. And so the whole science of bhakti is there in Nectar of Devotion. So it's very important that you read that book. And we were first given that book in 1970, and when the book came out, I'd been a devotee about 8 months. And the beginning, first wave of Nectar Devotion is quite clear, but as you get into Rasa Tattva, it's a whole new dimension which we had no understanding of. And even now, for me, many of these things are still not entirely clear, or they may be clear intellectually, but on another level not clear. So Prabhupada just told us to read it over and over again and that we would understand it. And he said by reading this book that we are associating with Rupa Goswami. So that's our position. We are associating with Rupa Goswami by reading Nectar of Devotion. So I just wanted to make you aware of the foundational importance that Rupa Goswami plays in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He is the embodiment of Lord Chaitanya and of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. He embodies those. That's who Lord Chaitanya entrusted his teachings with. Now, as you may know, Lord Chaitanya, he wanted to experience the mood of Srimati Radharani and the kind of love that she had for him. And he was, Krishna was so amazed by observing the love that Radha had for him and what she was experiencing that he became transcendentally envious or jealous in a sense. And he wanted to experience it also. So coming as Lord Chaitanya, he took on the mood of Radha to experience the love that she had. So one time at Rath Yatra, Lord Chaitanya recited a verse that Radharani had recited when Radharani had gone to Kurukshetra. And I think we may have talked about this. When Radharani went to Kurukshetra, she said that I need you to come back to Vrindavan because in Kurukshetra, Krishna was dressed as a king in royalty. And so it was like a different Krishna. So that's not the Krishna of Vrindavan, and so here we are with you, but we need you to come back to Vrindavan and be the Krishna that you were. And we want to serve you and please you, and in that aspect, in that form. And we can't do that here, even though you're here. So it was a high point of separation and that Radharani was feeling. And Lord Chaitanya came to experience separation of Krishna, Radha and Krishna. And when Lord Chaitanya recited this verse, nobody understood. Why is he reciting this verse in Rath Yatra? But Rath Yatra is actually taking Krishna, the mood of Rath Yatra is taking Krishna back to Vrindavan. So Lord Chaitanya was in that mood, and he was thinking of Kurukshetra because that's where Radha and Krishna came. That's where the Radha and the Gopis and the Brajvasis came to ask Krishna to come back to Vrindavan. So they were experiencing this heightened degree of separation because they were with Krishna, but they couldn't have any relation with him because he was in a different form, in a different position, surrounded by ministers and all the regal paraphernalia and his wives, and so they couldn't just engage with Krishna in that position. He had to come back to Vrindavan, free of his wives, and just be there for them. So their separation had achieved this pinnacle. And so Mahaprabhu was in that mood at Rath Yatra, and he recited that verse. And then Rupa Goswami had written another verse of Radharani, expressing the same thing, that these are the same moonlit nights, you're the same Krishna, everything's the same, but we want to take you to Vrindavan. So both verses were similar, and Rupa Goswami wrote that verse, and it was outside his kutir, that verse was written on a palm leaf, and Mahaprabhu came when Rupa Goswami wasn't there, and he read the verse. And then he said, Rupa Goswami, he understands my mood. And Swarup Damodar was there, and he said to Swarup Damodar, how could Rupa Goswami understand this? Nobody understands this, what my mood of separation is from Krishna, but Rupa Goswami understood it. And Swarup Damodar said, yes, you've given him your mercy, so by your mercy he understands. So the point is, Rupa Goswami perfectly understands the mood of Lord Chaitanya. And the interesting thing about Lord Chaitanya, which is why Rupa Goswami said, Namo Maha Vandanaya, you're the most magnanimous, is that Lord Chaitanya came to give this love that he was experiencing in the mood of separation from Radharani, which is the highest aspect, that's as high as love goes. What Radharani experiences is the high, it doesn't get any higher than that. So that's what Lord Chaitanya is experiencing. Then he's coming to give it, and he's coming to give it in Kali Yuga. It doesn't make any sense because we're so unqualified. But still, he's chosen to give this very elevated love of Krishna in the mood of the gopis, which is enriched by feelings of separation, which then enriches the feelings of meeting. And it becomes even sweeter when they meet because they're separated. And he gives this knowledge to Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami, as Rupa Manjari, understands all of this because she understands Radharani, and Lord Chaitanya is exhibiting Radharani's mood. And then Rupa Goswami says something interesting, Moho Maha Vandanaya, you're the most magnanimous incarnation, because he understands you're Krishna Prema Pradayate, you're giving Krishna Prema in this most unique and unprecedented way. And he understands that prema, and he sees Lord Chaitanya experiencing it, and then just giving it to everybody here. Take the Mahamantra, it will give you this prema. And then Lord Chaitanya gives these instructions to Rupa, and he says, now you write books about this intimate prema that no one knows about. So nobody knew about this before. This is what Lord Chaitanya came to give. So we shouldn't take it for granted that what we're learning in Krishna consciousness was known before Lord Chaitanya. It may have been known by a few, but it wasn't widely distributed. A few rare acharyas may have known something of it, but when Lord Chaitanya came, then he opened it up. He said, now everybody's going to understand this. And just like you become a devotee, you take the Bhakti Shastri, you'll study Nectar Devotion. But in any case, as anybody can read Nectar Devotion now. And in Nectar Devotion, all these intimate truths are explained, which have never been given before. I don't know if you all know that it's never been given. So Lord Chaitanya just opened the storehouse, and Rupa Goswami was the main way that storehouse was open for everybody. So that's the idea. And therefore, you understand the prime importance of Rupa Goswami, and that he's the one explaining everything. So therefore, we're Rupanugas, because it has to go through him. So whatever we say has to be collaborated by him. And of course, if you're reading Prabhupada's books, then you are also a Rupanuga, if you're following Prabhupada, because Prabhupada's following Rupa Goswami. Anyway, at the end of his life, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, we aspire just to be the dust of Rupa and Raghunath, or you could say the dust of the Goswamis. And so what does he mean? He says, we aspire to be the dust means we aspire to be their servants, and to be their servants means we aspire to spread their mission and understand their teachings and live those teachings. So really every devotee's Rupanuga, and the aspiration of every Vaishnava is to be a particle of dust at the feet of Rupa Goswami, which means to serve the mission of Lord Chaitanya as entrusted to Rupa Goswami and to follow the instructions of Rupa Goswami. And so Srila Prabhupada is giving us those instructions. Now, something very interesting that I found on the database, which is all of Prabhupada's books, is that I searched Rupa Goswami. And so database allows you to search every reference in Prabhupada's books to any word. So I searched Rupa Goswami. And 4,422 references to Rupa Goswami came up. And usually if you search a word, if it's referenced a lot, it will be like 600-700. A few words or more. Obviously if you reference Krishna, it may come up 10,000 times. But Rupa Goswami came up 4,000 times. 4,400, I think. 4,200. So, in most of the times, they were references to something that Rupa Goswami had written. Rupa Goswami says, Rupa Goswami advises, the nectar of instruction, Rupa Goswami teaches us, in nectar of devotion, it is said. So these are all references to Rupa Goswami. 4,000 references. Some of them, of course, were references to Leela, but the majority were references to pastimes. And so, what does that mean? It means we're followers of Rupa Goswami. Because Prabhupada is constantly, he's like establishing Siddhanta, foundational points of our philosophy. He's established, or are established by Rupa Goswami. And another thing, which is so important for us, Rupa Goswami established the definition of pure devotional service in Nectar of Devotion, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmada Navritam, Anukuldena Krishna Nusila, Bhakti Uttama. So when we're talking about love, what is love? Well, Rupa Goswami establishes what is love by establishing what is pure devotional service. And he said, Anyabhilashita Sunyam, we had talked about this yesterday, that no other motive than no motive to better yourself materially, no motive to become liberated, to become one with God, to become free from suffering, no motive to attain any kind of spiritual power for any personal interest. And the service should be done favorably, in relation to Krishna, done favorably. In other words, done according to what Krishna wants, as we learn from the Acharyas. So love is about the way the person you love wants it done. And love is about not having any other motive other than to please them. And so that's how he's defining love. And that becomes the foundational verse of Nectar of Devotion, and you could say the foundational verse of Vaishnavism. That everything in Vaishnavism evolves around achieving this level of purity. And the value of our bhakti can be evaluated around this definition. How does that bhakti coincide? Is it pure? Is it unmotivated? Is it contaminated with any gyan, any desire to get out of the material world, any desire to be free from suffering, as opposed to just the desire to please Krishna? And as we said many times, Prabhupada had said, love means to satisfy the other person without motive. And so this definition is that. It shows us that's what love is. And so the truth about love is the title of this series, and the truth about love is explained in this verse. So this is like the pivotal verse for Vaishnavism, and it's written by Rupa Goswami. And there are other pivotal verses that he's written about engaging in devotional service, about the definition of renunciation, yukta vairagya, how to be renounced but how to use things for Krishna. These are all pivotal verses upon which our whole philosophy is based. And there may be like 5, 6, 7 verses that Prabhupada will quote over and over again by Rupa Goswami, and they're like landmarks of our philosophy. And those verses are in Nectar of Devotion. Most of them are Nectar of Devotion and Nectar of Instruction. And so Rupa Goswami, he holds this place of where in our theology, his verses are like the standards. Like in jazz, you have this thing called jazz standards. His verses are like the standards upon which bhakti is built. So, now, some leelas Before we do some leelas, when Lord Chaitanya instructed him, then he said, I want you to go to Vrindavan, and at that point, in Vrindavan, all the places where Krishna had his pastimes were covered. It means nobody knew where they were. And Lord Chaitanya said, go there and find those places and uncover them. So he found the place, Radhakund, Shyamakund. I think Lord Chaitanya found Radhakund. It's a little pond and nobody knew it. So, and then he said, and excavate deities, or at least establish deity worship. So Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, he had this order to find all the lost places and then find the deities, that were worshipped there, because there were deities worshipped there previously. And they were established by Krishna's grandson, Bhajanat, and he couldn't find any. And so he was like lamenting, and then one little cowherd boy came and said, why are you lamenting? He said, because I haven't been able to execute this order of Mahaprabhu. I haven't found any deities. And this little boy said, well, there's this cow, and he's pouring milk on this one spot, and I think that's where there's a deity there of Krishna, and you should go there. Go there tomorrow morning. He comes every day at this time, at such and such time, and he pours milk there, and you go there. And then the boy left. It was just kind of like, came out of nowhere and just disappeared. And Rupa was thinking, who's this boy? What's going on? Who was that boy? Who do you think that boy was? Yeah, that boy was Krishna. So he went there and he dug, and there was a deity of Radha Govinda. And he established the temple of Radha Govinda, and when when Islam took over in India, northern India, they came and were destroying temples and destroying deities. So many of the deities were taken prior to their coming, knowing that they would come. And Radha Govinda was taken to Jaipur. Many of the deities were taken to Jaipur, and some came back, and some didn't. And some other deities were established in those temples, but not the original deities. And the original deities of Radha Govinda are in Jaipur, and the Radha Govinda temple is the most popular temple in Jaipur. They get up to 10,000 people for Mangal Arti. So it's amazing. So he found those deities, and the Goswamis established 7 temples in Vrindavan. That was one of the services they had. And there were 2 other services I'm forgetting, and I have it written here in my notes. Notes are good when you can't remember. Oh yes, obviously, to write Bhakti Shastras, which he did. He wrote many, many books to delineate devotional service as a science, which is so important because you can see in the field of religion, in the world of religion, that people sentimentally or in their own way define what love of God means. In Christianity, many branches of Christianity define love of God actually as God giving you sense gratification. Not as you, and even if you defined it as pleasing God, then there also, well, how do you define pleasing God? What does that mean? How do you know what pleases him? Do you just make it up? So to write Bhakti Shastras means to write the science of how you please Krishna. What is it he wants, how you serve him. So then he lists all these items of devotional service and the important items of accepting a guru, accepting guidance from a guru. Obviously the guru will guide you in how to please Krishna. And then the 9 processes of devotional service. So everything we're learning, essentially, fundamentally, is explained in Nectar of Devotion, of how to serve Krishna. So it's we say, the science of devotion. So what Prabhupada means by science is that it's not whimsical, that Rupa Goswami has outlined it very strictly, very carefully. So that was one of the instructions that Mahaprabhu gave him in the other instruction, which was the same instruction, was to propagate the rules of bhakti. So in those shastras, have these rules, and in those Shastras explain everything about rasa. So both those things. By writing those books, he explained about rasa, he explained about bhava and prema, or all the stages. And then he explained all the rules. Okay. And what happened was, at one point, Lord Chaitanya just blessed Rupa Goswami and said, "Here, I give you all the power to do this." So he was given power, and then that power was handed down. And what Rupa Goswami started was continued by other great acharyas, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also. He was very special in presenting Krishna consciousness in later years, and some people say he is an incarnation of Rupa Goswami. And if not actually a physically incarnation, but incarnation of that mercy of Lord Chaitanya to understand Krishna consciousness so deeply and express it. So, by the grace of these acharyas, Krishna consciousness has been explained in a way which we could never understand on our own. And we are the recipients of this gift. And it's so, in a sense, awkward that we can understand such high things about Krishna consciousness being so unqualified. But at the same time, by trying to understand these higher aspects of love of Krishna, we become purified of our lust, because we understand that what we think is love is not love. Because now, when you understand the science of love, what it means to love, that to be separated for a moment feels like 12 years. And then, so, okay, now I understand what love is. I understand the intensity of it. And so many other examples of love, as we see in Krishna's pastimes, that helps us clarify what love is. Otherwise, how would you understand what love is? You just make up an idea based on your experience of what you think is love. But then you see Krishna engaging in leelas with the gopis, then you understand what love is. Love, a lot of times, is joking. A lot of times it's lying, it's cheating, it's getting mad. That's what Krishna does. But when you understand the underlying motive is to please the lover, then you understand, yeah, that's what love is about. It's just like when the Brajbasis, and especially the gopis, when they were at Kurukshetra, and they were saying, "Krishna, come back and enjoy with us." Their whole thinking was, "Krishna, come back to Vrindavan so we can please you, so we can serve you. That this is your place. This is the place of the highest rasa, and we want to give you the highest pleasure." So that's only the way they think. Come back, even if they think, "I want to kiss you," it's only because that will give pleasure to Krishna. They don't think about anything else. So love means only giving pleasure to Krishna. So whatever the gopis ask of Krishna is a situation in which they can fully satisfy and please him. And you know, when you have love, your greatest happiness is to give pleasure to your beloved. And when you have lust, your greatest happiness is to give pleasure to yourself. So to the degree that in a relationship you want the other person to satisfy you, to that degree you lack pure love for that person. And just like in relationship to our spiritual master, we want to serve him purely without any desire. We don't want to ask anything. And sometimes I think a devotee sometimes asks Prabhupada for some money for something. Even of a service, and Prabhupada said, you don't ask your spiritual master for money. In principle, you want to serve, because that's how you learned to love Krishna, through serving your spiritual master. And so that's how we understand pure love, that you never ask anything. It's all, but to the degree that we're asking, especially in relationships of this world, outside of spiritual relationships, that's the degree that they're impure. And so much conflict comes in relationships because of personal desire. I want this and you're not giving it to me. And that's why Prabhupada said, there's no love in this world, because you want something. Everybody wants something. You don't want to purely serve. But when you love someone, your only pleasure is just to make them happy. Just like when you have a child, you're so happy to make the child happy. That's all you care about. Get the best things for the child. You want to get the nicest food, the nicest facility, make them comfortable. And you don't care. You make so many sacrifices because you love them. So that's the nature of love. Through extensive Vedic research, Sri Rupa Goswami proved that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings present the highest philosophy and the perfection of religion. Sri Chaitanya empowered him to explain his own love and devotion and to propagate it to the world. Srila Rupa Goswami has been attributed with the honor of being the person who realized the manobhishtam, what's in the mind, the desire in the mind. Manobhishtam, mano means mind, abhishtam means desire. The innermost heart's desire, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. There's a prayer, Sri Chaitanya manobhishtam, stapitam yena bhutale. When will Rupa Goswami, who established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter at his feet? That means, when can I be a pure servant of Rupa Goswami? Because he understood Lord Chaitanya's mind and heart, so he could do that, as we said before. It is said that without taking shelter of Srila Rupa Goswami, one cannot enter into the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Without taking shelter of Rupa Manjari, one cannot enter into the confidential pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. So it's like there are two gates here. One is entering the past, understanding and entering the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, or the eternal Leelas of Lord Chaitanya, which we can enter. I don't know if you know this, but if you desire, in your liberated stage, if you desire, you can take a form to enter the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, as well as a form to enter the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So here it said, what does it say? Without taking shelter of Rupa Goswami, you can't enter the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. So we can't enter the pastimes, and as we said, we can't understand Lord Chaitanya. In the same way, without taking, Rupa Goswami he's our way into understanding and serving Radharani and Radha Krishna, Leela at Vrindavan. So he's kind of like, you could say, the guardian of Mahaprabhu's pastimes and the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. That's amazing. His position is amazing, isn't it? Without taking shelter, so without following his example, following his teachings, without taking guidance from him, we can't enter into these Leelas. And that just further makes the point that whatever our acharyas are teaching are his teachings, and they're just elaborating and clarifying them, because we have to go through him. So some of these things we've already discussed. It was Rupa Goswami who, more than anyone else, firmly established the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. He wrote a large number of important books on the science of bhakti. Yes. On returning to Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami discovered at Brahmakund the deity of Vrindadevi, from whom the town of Vrindavan gets its name. This deity was later moved to Kamyavan. Rupa Goswami then discovered the famous deity of Govindadevi, as we talked about. Rupa Goswami's worshipable deity in Vrindavan was Sri Govinda, as we discussed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had instructed the Goswamis to rediscover the holy places of Krishna's pastimes in Braj and establish worship of his deity form. One day, Rupa Goswami, sitting on the banks, we told the story, he was lamenting, and he couldn't carry out this order. And Brajanath had installed a number of deities in Braja, and these deities were known as Haridev, Madan Mohan, Gopinath, and Sri Govinda. So Hari, Madan Mohan, Gopinath, Sri Govinda. And he tried to locate these, but he was unable. And he was sitting there, a very beautiful cowherd boy came and asked him, "Hey, Swami, why do you look so sad?" Rupa Goswami, he became inspired by this boy, and then he explained. The boy said, "I know what you're looking for." Then the boy brought him to Gomatila and explained, every day a cow comes on top of this hill and pours milk down here. There's a good chance you'll find what you're looking for. Then he left. And yes, he did find the deity. Okay. There's just like more details on what we're discussing. Well, let's read. Now Sri Rupa was positive that Sri Govindadev must be within the earth. He came very quickly to the village of the cowherds nearby and excitedly told them everything that had happened. The cowherd men hurriedly gathered up some spades and hatchets, came running to the hill. Digging where Rupa Goswami indicated, they saw, after removing a small amount of earth, the all-enchanting form of Sri Govinda. They all erupted in shouts of ecstasy. Hari Hari, Sri Govinda has again manifested. Sri Rupa, with tears flowing from his eyes, fell down at the lotus feet of Sri Govinda to offer his obeisances, all the while reciting prayers and hymns. Very quickly the news spread, and the other Goswamis, floating in the ocean of joy, came there. Soon an incessant flow of people from all quarters began to arrive, carried by waves of joy. Lord Brahma and the other demigods, having assumed mortal appearances, mixed in with the other people and gazed upon the body of Sri Govinda. It's amazing. Imagine you're standing in Mayapur and there's some festival, and the person next to you is actually Lord Brahma in disguise. Sri Rupa Goswami immediately sent word to Mahaprabhu in Puri concerning this auspicious event. Sri Gaurasundar, along with his associates, couldn't contain their ecstasy on receiving this happy news. Meanwhile, the Brahmins performed the Abhishek, began to prepare offerings for milk, yogurt, rice, flour, and vegetables, which the villagers were bringing. So everybody was coming. The news got out. Even without the internet, the news just got out really quickly. Then he entrusted him, this is about Jiva Goswami, he entrusted him with proofreading in various literatures which he had composed. So Jiva Goswami was entrusted as proofreader. Just as he was very strict with his young nephew, Anupam, he was very affectionate and loving. Their relationship was an ideal example of how the Guru and the Sishya behaved together. So he was very strict, but he was very loving also. When Rupa had finished Lalita Madhava, he gave it to Raghunath Das Goswami to read. Lalita Madhava is the description of Krishna's pastimes after he left Vrindavan and was full with sentiments in the mood of separation. By reading the book, Das Goswami began to cry day and night, having become completely absorbed in love and separation to the point of being ready to leave his body. He became as though deranged in mind from sadness, and he completely lost all his patience. When Rupa requested Das Goswami Raghunath to return the manuscript so he could correct it, Raghunath held on to it. He wouldn't give it back, not saying anything. After considering what to do, this is a funny story. So he wrote Lalita, as we said, he had divided Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava. So Lalita Madhava are the pastimes, it says here, the pastimes outside of Vrindavan. It's a description of Krishna's pastimes after he left Vrindavan. And so by reading what was happening, when Raghunath Das Goswami was reading this book of Krishna outside of Vrindavan, he was feeling separation from Krishna by reading about Krishna's pastimes outside Vrindavan. And he was going crazy. And from reading this description, it looks like it was very painful, but it was sweet pain. It was so sweet that when Rupa Goswami said, "Can you give me back the book so I can correct it?" He wouldn't let it go. And so then what Rupa Goswami was thinking, well, what do I do now? So then he wrote a book called Dana Keli Kumudhi, which are the pastimes with Krishna in Vrindavan. There's certain pastimes where he begs charity from the gopis to pay a tax, not begs charity, he charges them a tax for carrying yogurt and butter. He said, I'm in charge of Vrindavan, you have to pay a tax. So it's a funny pastime. And then he said, here, take this. And I don't know if he said, take this, and when Raghunath opened his hands, he took the other book. But anyway, they exchanged it. And so that's how he got the book back. It's kind of an interesting story. And then Raghunath became absorbed in happiness and ecstasy by reading this book. On another occasion, the Goswamis were having a discussion about the ecstatic feelings of separation of Radha and Krishna and their associates. Some of the Vaishnavas were fainting to the ground while Rupa Goswami began to breathe heavily. His heart felt as though it was burning. At one point, he sighed. His breath happened to fall on the body of a devotee. Shortly thereafter, a boil developed on the devotee's body because of his breath. Interesting. Anyway, and we said that he had found the Vrindadevi deity, and she appeared to him in a dream and said, "This is where I am on the banks of Brahmakund." So he went there, and then he looked, and suddenly a heavenly damsel whose bodily effulgence defeated the luster of gold appeared. All the directions were illuminated by this glow, and the atmosphere created by her presence was very sweet and cooling. Rupa offered his dandavats and various prayers and hymns. So he saw Vrindadevi. She personally came. In this way, she appeared in Brajabhumi, and then he was able to establish the glories of Brajabhumi through Rupa, and Sanatan did this. So, there's other stories where Radharani came and actually cooked for Rupa Goswami. Rupa wanted to offer some sweet rice, and this lovely young cowherd girl came and offered to do it. And then Sanatan realized it when he tasted it. He said, "No one in this world could have cooked this. This has been. Who was this that cooked?" And he said, "Some young beautiful girl." And he said, "That was Radharani, and you've taken service from Radharani, and you should never take service from Radharani." So, yes. Now we have 5 minutes. I don't know if you have any questions. This maybe it's beyond your head or something. But if you have no questions, I'll read a little more. This is the Disappearance Day of Rupa Goswami. Some of this is maybe a little redundant. I want to read those verses. I think they're here. Now this explains, I don't know if you're aware of this, but when Krishna leaves Vrindavan, he takes on another form. So you have Krishna Shyamsundar, his original form, and then when he leaves Vrindavan, he takes on another form. And therefore, the two books are about two different aspects of Krishna. The Krishna known as Yadu Kumar is Vasudeva Krishna. He's different from the Krishna who is the son of Nanda Maharaj. Yadu Kumar Krishna manifests his pastimes in the city of Mathura and Dwarka, but Krishna, son of Nanda Maharaj, never leaves in Vrindavan at any time. So even though it appears that Krishna leaves, he never really leaves. And he manifests when he leaves Vrindavan, he leaves in a different form. Because outside of Vrindavan, he doesn't have that same form. Because the relationships are different, and that form, therefore, relates to people differently. So, he takes on that form, but so it said he never leaves Vrindavan, because in the Shyamsundars will not exist outside Vrindavan. So, in Shyamsundar exists eternally, so he must exist always there, but he may not always be seen to the naked eye by everyone. But he's there, engaging in leelas for those who can see it and within the hearts of the devotees. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. He never even sets one foot outside of Vrindavan. That's a verse from Bhagavatam. Rupa Goswami then divided his drama into two parts. First part is called Vidagdha Madhava, pastimes in Vrindavan. Second part, Lalita Madhava, where he goes to Dwarka. And then all the gopis were the queens of Dwarka are expansions of the gopis, so that's how the gopis unite with Krishna outside of Vrindavan, through the queens. So then the question comes up, why did Rupa Goswami not write one book? As we said, originally he was going to write one book, but now 2 books. So why? And we're going to tell you why. The reason is very deep. Srila Kavi Karnapur is a very great devotee, and he composed a book called Ananda Vrindavan Champa. In this book he has described the pastimes of Lord Krishna from his birth up to Rasa Leela and the divine couple's swing pastimes. And he stopped there. He didn't go any further than this. He didn't describe about Krishna's going to Mathura or Dwarka, because this separation mood is very difficult to tolerate for the pure devotees. He was thinking, my mistress Radhika cannot tolerate this separation, so I'll not write about it. And so that's why Raghunath Swami, when he was reading, he was even though you say, well, they're pastimes outside of Vrindavan and they're not intimate like Vrindavan, but they're reading about Krishna outside of Vrindavan, and then they're experiencing this intense feelings of separation because they're thinking of Krishna's out of Vrindavan. So therefore, he separated the 2 books, because they could read the book about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and relish those pastimes. And he thought, well, maybe they can't tolerate hearing about Krishna leaving Vrindavan, so I write it as a separate book for those who want to read it. Srila Rupa Goswami, however, has written about the moods of both meeting and separation, because this separation mood is a very deep, transcendental, ecstatic feeling. At the time of meeting, though Radha and Krishna are together, something may be forgotten or lost in the heart. On the other hand, at the time of separation, there's complete meeting in new and fresh ways in the heart, not only inside, but sometimes externally. There are sporties, temporary visions in which the loved one is actually present. And we had talked about this maybe a month or so ago, that it is said, when you're with someone, you may take it for granted or forget them, but when you're separated, or when you're with someone, also you just see them in one place, but when you're separated, you see them in many places. So, you're seeing Krishna in many places. When you're feeling separation, you're seeing him everywhere. So, we need to discuss separation, and the moods of separation are necessary to nourish the feelings of meeting. Knowing all these very deep transcendental truths and wanting to establish the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within the world, Rupa Goswami also glorified the mood of separation. Although this mood is very high, has many transcendental features that will not come at the time of meeting. Still, it is not our goal in life to be separated, but it enhances. So, anyway, let's read a little more. No Gaudiya Vaishnavas want Radha and Krishna to be eternally separated. What kind of person would want this? No Vrajvasi would want it. Rather, there is a place for this separation. Rupa Goswami has explained this in his book Ujjvala Nilamani. Without the mood of separation, the mood of meeting will not be nourished and come to increasingly higher stages. Pastimes of separation are very important because they play the role of nourishing the sweetness of meeting. Okay, so now I'm going to... I remember I told you that during the Rath Yatra, Lord Chaitanya quoted a verse, and Rath Yatra is very deep because it's actually the mood of separation and bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan. So this is the verse that Mahaprabhu quoted, and this is a verse from Radharani which she spoke when she was in Kurukshetra. And I know these things, maybe you think, wow, this is like very elevated stuff, and I'm just trying to get up in the morning and chant my rounds and follow the 4 regular principles. This is very high stuff. And it's true, but it has 2 effects. One, it has the effect of bringing you to a transcendental position, and it clarifies what love is. So it becomes more clear what lust is when we know what love is. So this is Radharani speaking, and this is what she spoke in Kurukshetra. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. So she's there in Kurukshetra with Krishna. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra, the same fragrance of malati flowers, and the same sweet breezes blowing from the Kadama forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover, yet my mind is not happy here. I'm eager to go back to that place on the bank of the Reva under the Vetasi tree. This is my desire. So, as I said, when Lord Chaitanya spoke this, nobody could understand, why is he saying this? What is his mood? But Rupa Goswami, when he wrote that prayer on the palm leaf, what he wrote was another verse spoken by Radharani. And she said, my dear friend, now I have met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I'm the same Radharani, and now we're meeting together. It is very pleasant, but still I would like to go to the bank of the Jamuna, under the trees of the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of his flute playing the fifth note within that forest of Vrindavan. So that's what Rupa Goswami wrote, because he understood the mind of Lord Chaitanya, so he wrote that. It's like, wow, amazing. In this verse, Rupa Goswami has clarified Mahaprabhu's inner meaning and thus revealed to the world the importance of Parakya Rasa, the mood of Paramore love. So Krishna's there with his queens, and he's married, and Radharani is saying, come back to Vrindavan. And so when you come back to Vrindavan, he's engaging with women he's not married to, and he's showing that that's actually a higher, the intensity of the love with those gopis is higher than in marriage. So in this way, he's also showing the importance of what's called Parakya Rasa. And Lord Chaitanya wanted to establish that. I mean, materially, it's lower, but spiritually, it's higher. So, okay. So, we'll finish there. Well, there's more. I mean, there's so much to say. But our time is up. Okay. So, thank you for listening. And if you're able to stay awake, then in about an hour and 35 minutes, I'm going to give a class. But part of the class is going to be on this subject. And, well, now that I have your attention, let me just tell you something else. Because today is the appearance day of Gauridas Pandit, and I would like to read you something about him if you want to stay, if you're still awake. I know for you it's like 9:20. But it's also either the appearance or disappearance day of Gauridas Pandit, so we should discuss a little bit, and then I believe if it's not today for you, it'll be tomorrow, and then you can be in the mood tomorrow meditating on these great personalities and trying to get their mercy and understand their contribution. It's, we come from this great lineage, and we don't, I think we often take it for granted. We just don't know where it's coming from and how it's coming down, and it's just amazing. Gauridas, there's a verse written by Krishnadas Kaviraj. Gauridas Pandit, the emblem of the most elevated devotional service and love of Godhead, had the greatest potency to receive and deliver such love. Making Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda the lords of his life, Gauridas Pandit sacrificed everything for the service of Lord Nityananda, even the fellowship of his family. Gauridas Pandit was Subhal, one of the 12 most important cowherd boyfriends of Krishna, who are known as Dasha Gopal, so 12, but it was actually, of those 12, there were two main ones, Subal and Ujjvala, and Subal is the most intimate. Sridam, Sudam, Vasudam, Subal, Mahabal, Subahu, Mahabahu, Stoka Krishna, Dama, Arjuna, Lavanga, and Kushum Masala. Kushum Masala. So these Krishna has different kinds of friends, and some treat Krishna as an elder more respectfully. Some are as an elder means more paternally. Some as a junior, more in the mood of service. And then he's got friends who are very close. And then he's got Priyanarmasakas, which are the closest. Like they, as we said, they'll eat something. Oh, this tastes good. Here, give it to Krishna. Whereas the younger friends wouldn't do that. They would be more respectful. And so these most intimate friends, Priyanarmasakas, they also engage in interactions with the gopis. So it's almost like Madhurya Rasa. In Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we find the passage where Srimati Radharani describes confidential service to Krishna using his friend Subal. So now we're going to learn a little about Subal because Gauridas Pandit is Subal. There was talk among the friends of Radharani, the gopis, about these most intimate friends. One gopi addressed Radharani, "My dear Prashangi, delicate one, just see how Subal is whispering your message into Krishna's ear, how he is delivering the confidential letter of Shaimadasi silently into Krishna's hands, how he is delivering the betel nuts prepared by Palika into Krishna's mouth, and how he is decorating Krishna with a garland prepared by Taraka. Did you know, my dear friend, that all these most intimate friends of Krishna are always engaged in his service in this way? Out of the many intimate Priyanarmasakis, Subal and Ujjvala are considered to be the most prominent." So she's saying, look at what he's doing. And he's doing things that even they can't do. Right there delivering in broad daylight. They can't do that in broad daylight. He's delivering a flower garland. He's delivering a message from Shaima Devi. He's delivering messages from the gopis into his ear. Is that what it says? Whispering into Krishna's ear. Some messages. And Palika made betel nuts. Shaima Devi has a letter, and then there's a garland prepared by Taraka. Filled with deep love for him and anxious that they may be separated, Subal never, even in a dream, lets go of Krishna's hand. Wow. Subal's heart is sprinkled with the waters of the swiftly moving mountain stream of devotion. Wow. It's so dear, he never lets go of Krishna's hands. Yes. Let's read a little more about Gauridas Pandit. It's interesting. Just stay with me because it's an interesting story. I want to read it to you. You'll like this story. Just a little bit. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after performing different kinds of pastimes in Navadvip, wanted to take sannyas, he went to bid goodbye to Gauridas Pandit. At that time, Gauridas Pandit felt great separation from Mahaprabhu. And there's a song describing that separation, what he was feeling. And the song says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, dancing with Nityananda, who was chanting Hari Hari, arrived at the house of Gauridas Pandit to bid farewell. Weeping and weeping in separation, Gauridas fell at the feet of Lord Chaitanya and said, "You must never leave my house. Please heed my words. Stay here in Ambika Kalna." That's where Gauridas Pandit was living. It's about an hour from Mayapur. "This is my humble submission. If you leave me, I shall surely die. You must stay here, and I will always stay here and view your divine form. You are two brothers. Stay here at my place, and everyone will be delivered just by seeing you. Again, I submit. Don't leave. O Gaur Hari, you are the savior of the fallen. If you leave, I will die." Well, that's a tough request. The Lord said, Gauridas, allow me to fulfill your hope in this way. I shall give you an exact copy of Gaura Nityananda, a murti that you may worship. By seeing this murti, you can think of us. My murti is as good as I am. Know it for certain that my words are true. So what did Lord Chaitanya do? Listen. Gauridas Pandit let out a deep breath and began sobbing and wept. Again, the two brothers tried to console him. Still, nothing they did could steady or pacify him. In ecstasy, Gauridas Pandit begged the two brothers to stay. So, what he's saying is, I don't want a deity, I want you. And because Chaitanya and Nityananda are Bhaktavatsala, always affectionate to his devotees, they were captured by Gauridas Pandit. He imprisoned those two lords in a temple of divine love. So, Gauridas Pandit is saying, I can't live without you. You stay here. If you don't stay here, I'll die. And stay here and you'll bless and deliver everybody here. And so Lord Chaitanya said, okay, I'll stay here in the form of deity. I'll manifest two deity forms. And he's crying, no, you have to stay here. Now it's really a predicament. Seeing the great anxiety of Gauridas Pandit, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said with great gravity, we will stay here at your place. Know for certain that we two brothers will always stay here. Consoling him with these words, the two brothers manifest themselves in the form, two perfectly formed deity forms. So, it seems to be a contradiction. Lord Chaitanya said, allow me to fulfill your hope. I shall give you an exact copy of Gaura Nitaya, a murti. Well, I think the reason he was pacified, he said, I'll give you a murti. No, I don't want a murti. And then Lord Chaitanya standing there, they just became murtis. So no, this is us. We're just forming murtis, not like we got a murti or manifested a deity, but here's us in the form of murtis. We will stay here at your place. Know for certain that we two brothers will always stay here with you. Consoling him with these words, the two brothers manifest themselves in the form, two perfect deity forms. The four of them stood there, Gaura Nityananda and the exact replicas of Gaura Nitaya. Gauridas Pandit was stunned. Tears of divine love filled his eyes, so he could see that was actually them. Again, the Lord told him, your wish is fulfilled. These two will stay here in your home forever. You will always internally realize that in this way. At your home we shall eternally reside. And then Gauridas began to cook, and then he offered everything to his four guests. And he gave them garlands decorated with, and then gave them sandalwood. Then it was time for them to go. So then they left, and two left and two were standing. And Gauridas Pandit rendered service, and he was very happy. One day, to increase the divine love of Gauridas Pandit, the Murtis of Sri Gaura Nitaya decided to revive in Gauridas Pandit the Vrindavan conception. At that time, they smiled sweetly and said, O Gauridas, you were formerly Subal. Don't you remember? Together we used to have many pastimes on the bank of the Jamuna in Vrindavan. While acting in this way, Gaura Nitaya caused Gauridas to conceive of them in the forms of Krishna and Balaram. In this way, they appeared in the dress of cowherd boys with a stick. So that's what he was seeing. He was seeing Gaura Nitaya as Krishna Balaram. So now Lord Chaitanya is having fun with them. He said, don't you remember? You're Subal, and we used to do everything on the bank of the Ganga. And then now he sees them this way. Krishna held a flute, peacock feather, etc. And now Gauridas was in the mood of cowherd boy. And every day he would cook for the deities, and one day Gaura Nitaya became very angry and they refused to eat. And they didn't like that he was cooking so much. He said, you're old and you don't have to do this. The Lord said, there's nothing wrong with your cooking. You're old. Don't cook so much. We can't tolerate seeing you put all this effort in. Be happier if you would just cook less. Gauridas said, eat what I've cooked today. In the future, I won't take such great steps. Everything will be kept simple. I'll only cook a little shak, etc. Once Gauridas Pandit wanted to decorate Gaur Nityananda lavishly with beautiful ornaments. Knowing his mind, Gaur Nitai decorated themselves with ornaments and then got back up on their throne. They went down, put them on themselves as self-manifested ornaments. They just manifested and put them on. Here's an interesting pastime. We'll read one more and then we'll end. Sri Gauridas Pandit's dearmost disciple was Sri Hridai Chaitanya. Once around the time of the appearance day of Sri Gauranga, Gauridas went to the house of one of his disciples. At the time he entrusted the service of Sri Gaur Nitai in the care of Hridai Chaitanya. So he left. He said, Hridai Chaitanya, you take care of the deities. Then Hridai Chaitanya in great ecstasy rendered service to those deities. And then the appearance day was coming. 3 days remained before the big festival was to take place, and Gauridas Pandit still had not returned. Hridai Chaitanya became worried. Acting on his own, he arranged to send a message to the different devotees, inviting them to the festival. So, he hadn't come back, and he didn't get permission, but he thought, well, we're going to have a festival, so he invited people. Internally, Gauridas was happy, but he showed himself to be angry. So why did you do this? You're acting independently. So then Hridai Chaitanya is acting a pastime here. Hridai Chaitanya fell at his feet and offered pranams. And then he just went to the bank of the Ganges and he felt so bad. And then some man came while he was sitting there and gave a large donation. He said, give this to your guru. So then he went back and gave the donation. And then Gauridas Pandit said, put on a big festival on the banks of the Ganges. So they used that money to put on a big festival, and all the Vaishnavas came. And then they had kirtan. And this is the interesting part. Listen to this. This is really interesting. You're going to like this. In the midst of this kirtan, Gaura and Nityananda themselves appeared, singing and dancing. They just appeared in the kirtan. Hridai Chaitanya saw it with his own eyes. In this way, Gauridas Pandit arranged for a great festival. When the Pujari back at the temple, his name was Gangadas Pandit, entered the temple, he saw that Gaur and Nitai were not on their Singhasan. So they had this festival near the Ganga that the deities actually left. He immediately went to Gauridas Pandit to report this incident, and he couldn't understand that to increase the prema of Hridai Chaitanya, Gaur Nitai had gone off and joined the kirtan. Seeing the amazement of his Pujari, Gauridas Pandit smiled sweetly. Then, to stop the two brothers from getting away, he took a club in his hand and went off to the bank of the Ganges, to the place where Gaur and Nitai had joined. And he soon arrived. He took a club in his hand and went off to the bank of the Ganges, where Gaur Nitai had joined the great kirtan. He soon arrived at the banks where the kirtan was going on. He could see the two brothers dancing in ecstasy. But when the two brothers, Gaur Nitai, saw the angry mood of Gauridas Pandit, they became invisible. Keep listening. Find out where they went. Sri Gauridas Pandit could see that Gaur and Nityananda had entered into the temple of Hridai Chaitanya's heart. Beholding this in great wonder and ecstasy, Gauridas Pandit could not hold himself back. He began crying. He forgot his external show of anger and holding his disciple. You ready to go? I'm ready anytime. You are truly fortunate. From today your name will be Hridai Chaitanya, one who has Sri Chaitanya within his heart. He drenched Hridai Chaitanya Prabhu with the water of his tears. So Hridai means heart, Chaitanya, so he entered his heart. And then so what happened was now they're afraid the deities are going to run off the altar, so that they just open the curtains for a little bit and close them because they thought, oh, they're going to run off. So I also have to run off. We're going to the temple now for Guru Puja and Hare Krishna. And we'll see you. I don't know if we're going to see you next Saturday or not, because I don't think next Saturday is going to work because I'll be at Rath Yatra in Vancouver. But we'll keep you posted. Maybe we'll change the time. Hare Krishna. All glory.